The new UFO report. Is it a nothing burger? I say no, but I do think it's pretty much a copy and paste burger. But what's in it? And more importantly, what does it mean? To answer that question, we have to look at the report as well as two other government documents about UAPs, all of which were released to the public within 24 hours of each other. Some through official channels and some through not so official channels. To establish the recent series of events that preceded the release of the UFO report, we have to look at a statement made by Pentagon Press Secretary Pat Ryder, where he informed us that Congress only received the report one day before we did, which, if true, means that the rumors that the report was submitted then rejected were false. My bad. Ryder also pointed out that the definition of UAP used in the report, unidentified aerial phenomena, is outdated and has been replaced by unidentified anomalous phenomena, which also means that the UFO report itself was outdated when it was published. The definition of UAP was revised on December 6, 2022, because of a Senate amendment that was included in the National Defense Authorization Act and later signed into law. But thanks to Dean Johnson, we also have access to a slide presentation that was put together by the director of AARO, which shows that the author of the UFO report, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, is aware of the change to the definition of UAP. This presentation, titled UAP Mission and Civil Aviation, was given to the Transportation Research Board and National Academy of Engineering. And in my opinion, that presentation is more informative and thought-provoking than the UFO report itself. But more on that later. Now on to the UFO report. Before we get to the number of cases, I want to point out a footnote on the bottom of page number 3, which basically excludes any reports of objects observed in space from being included in this report, which also explains why they didn't list Space Force as one of the organizations that they received input from. Now let's talk numbers. They state that they have a total of 510 UAP reports, and that the reduction in stigma around this topic is one of the main reasons that so many cases are being reported now. So do your part to continue to reduce the stigma around this subject by talking about the topic with your friends, supporting members of Congress that are pushing for transparency, and simply liking and sharing videos on the UFO subject, because we need your help with the algorithms. Of the 510 cases, 144 of them were inherited from the preliminary assessment on UAPs. 247 new reports have been submitted since the preliminary assessment, the majority of which originate from Navy and Air Force aviators. So if we ignore the 144 previous cases, that leaves us with 366 new cases, 6 of which were identified as airborne clutter, 26 were identified as unmanned aircraft systems, i.e. drones, and 163 balloons or balloon-like entities, which leaves 171 cases in the uncharacterized category. And although they don't specify a number, they do state that some of the 171 cases involve a UAP that appears to demonstrate unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities. But the report doesn't elaborate on what those characteristics or capabilities are. My hope is that they're similar to the 5 observables that we've heard so much about. Now's a good time to tell you that AARO states in this report that the quarterly reports they deliver to Congress contain greater details regarding analysis and attribution of UAP events. And unfortunately, we don't get to see those quarterly reports. So we're left with 171 new unresolved cases. And only one of these cases needs to represent a non-human intelligence for us to get an answer to the question, are we alone? Now take this for what it's worth, but Chris Mellon just wrote a blog about his key takeaways from the report, and he ended it by stating, I've spoken with several credible people who claim the US has evidence of alien technology in its possession. The report also informed us that AARO is going to receive some help from the NIM Aviation Office. Yeah, the very same office that had a logo with a UFO on it that vanished into thin air. Speaking of logos, thanks to Kirkpatrick's slideshow, we got our first glimpse at AARO's new logo. Interestingly enough, it has a Latin phrase around the border of the logo from Marcus Aurelius that says, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." Is this a subtle nod to the consciousness connection associated with the UFO phenomenon? I don't know, but I hope this quote is one of the first things the AARO office is asked to expand upon. But back to the report. The NIM Aviation Office has been brought in to collaborate with AARO, and will be assigned the role of being the focal point for the intelligence community for all things UFO. leaving Arrow with the responsibility of being the focal point for the DoD side of the house on the UAP issue. Arrow needing the help of the NIM Aviation Office to tackle such a challenging topic is not a big surprise. In fact, thanks to the only hyperlink included in Arrow's slideshow, we know that in 1994, 50 Chinese scientists called for worldwide cooperation to establish a global joint UFO research effort because it is imperative to carry out a global campaign because UFOs are a worldwide concern. The new UFO report then becomes pretty much a copy and paste job, pulling in a bunch of previously published NDAA requirements. These appendixes, along with some repeated and summarized portions of the report, account for about half of the word count of the entire report, meaning that only about 4 partial pages of this 12-page document contain new information to the UFO community. It's of course not what we wanted, but it's what we got. And as Chris Mellon stated, the report is an example of the UAP issue gaining traction and acceptance within the government. And as a byproduct of the government investigating the UAP issue, they're honing their skills of detection and identification of objects in our airspace. And in a time when drone warfare is escalating exponentially, any capability that helps to reduce clutter and identify genuine aerial threats is of great value to the military and national security. So what Chris Mellon just described is a win-win situation. So hopefully Congress will realize that and not let this go. And Arrow's first UFO report will be looked back upon as the skinny end of a wedge that eventually led to us having a global conversation about the possible change to our perception of our place in this universe.